Hello, can you guys hear my neighbors talking? Dun 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 dun. 1 week out. 1 week out from tour. I have no idea if anyone's going to see this in real time. Hi, everybody. This is Arusha from Push a Cure fan documentary project, documentary in progress. I don't know. What is today? Today's December 20th, and so it's Tuesday, and I think about a week ago, we would have been either inside the Wembley Arena for the last Cure show, right? It's 1:30, so that would be 7:30. So yeah, we'd all be kind of arriving at the last Cure show. But before we get there, I want to say a big shout out to Terry Hall. Rest in peace, buddy. This guy. Right here. Funboy 3 is one of my favorite bands, like one of my go-to bands. And of course, this record, how important is this record in the history of rock and roll to everybody? Terry Hall died yesterday, I think, at the age of 63. And Martin Duffy may have died on Sunday. He was the keyboard player to, he played with Primal Scream and the Charlatans and Felts. And even though I wasn't like a huge fan of his music per se, the fact that he was 55 and died of a brain injury in his home is kind of scary. I have a brain injury. I was hit by a car 5 years ago. And so if some of you met me on tour and you noticed that I was like saying weird words that didn't make sense, sometimes when I get tired, my brain like empties out like a tank. Like a Ford truck gas tank. It's like just totally empty and I need to go sleep and refuel. Anyway, so rest in peace, especially to Terry Hall. But I thought I'd just do a check-in because I can't believe it's been a week out. I came home with McFlu. Hi, Senior Leader Paris Gaspard. I came home with McFlu, and I've been doing a lot of sleeping. I've been doing a lot of watching of screeners because I'm a member of the Directors Guild of America when I was working a lot more. Does anyone want to watch Batman? Or 13 Lives? Or The Nanny? Or how about Argentina 1985? Brings me to the World Cup, right? Argentina won? Is that what I heard? I bring that up because it was cool to hear everybody super excited about the World Cup and to have it on the news. But as a person who doesn't care about sports, I still don't understand why following a music group around is not okay, but following sports is okay. So if anybody who watches this at any point in time throughout history wants to comment on my YouTube channel or Facebook, hopefully YouTube, tell me why is it okay for people to follow sports and not music? Anyway, I would think that a lot of you who were on the tour are feeling a little bit of emptiness and nostalgia and loss for the incredible times that you had. Or maybe you're just thrown back into work and life and getting ready for Christmas and you don't even care. Or maybe you had a bad time. I don't know. I had an amazing time and I have so much to process. I don't even know where to begin. First of all, if Phil from Germany, are you watching this? What do I do with my map that I made? I made this map. I mean, it was like 2 years of planning, but not 2 years. What am I saying? 1 year. But I don't want to let go of my map. I need to let go, but it was such a feat. Helped me plan my tour. So let's go back in time, shall we? the tour started, what, October 6th in Riga? It was really hot. There were really next to no announcements from The Cure about anything. Like, so we had this Record Collector album. I mean, this, what am I saying? Record Collector. Hold on. This magazine had been issued, remember, and I believe they really wanted to get interviews with the band, but instead they interviewed us fans. So check it out, people. Anyway, so that's where we were at the beginning of the tour, and then the news leaked about 2 keyboards on the stage and a left-handed guitar, and then before you knew it, Perry Bamonte was on the stage, so now The Cure is a 6-piece band. And that created like a whole flurry of conjecture and what's happening and happiness and blah, 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 and all this stuff. But, and I'm not going to get into any of that other than to say that I saw The Cure about 20 times on this tour, and they sounded fucking smash-tastic every single time. That's the bottom line. So, yeah, so in October, I started giving these reports, and I was getting people to correspond with me around the world, and it was really cool. And people online, like there's this new thing on Twitter, Cure Gig Stats, and there's a guy, I forgot his name, but he started like writing out like every single song and every single, venue and so on and so forth, and you can find that online. Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine is going on. And basically the world is sort of struggling with financial crises left and right? So I hit the road on October 15th in Hamburg, Germany, which I started right away. I landed on the day of the show, which was kind of intense, but immediately started running into people. And I think that still is, aside from the music, my second favorite thing about being on tour or following The Cure is just running into people, old friends, new friends, people that I've seen online or I've taken photos of. A lot of you are out there, and some of you are like, yeah, I know you take photos of me and I don't like it. But some of you like it and love it. So if I ever take a photo of you or video and you don't want me to put it up online, just let me know. So far, my experience in the past 22 years has been that people appreciate it because it's a document of our lives. So, yeah, Hamburg, it started, and then Leipzig, which I think was one of my favorite gig experiences, partially because of the weather and the town. It was easy to walk from A to B, and that's when I started running into people on the train from Spain and Germany and people I didn't know and so on and so forth. And it becomes like a, I was just about to say web, like, and when you say the word web, you think of World Wide Web, but like this was like a real live web of people from different countries. And I don't know that I have anything new to necessarily say about my Cure experience, but just to re-emphasize how beautiful I think it is that so many people from around the world, first of all, continue to follow this band. And that was like re-emphasized. I mean, I met people this year in Germany, in Italy, wherever, that I've never spoken to in my life, but I've only recognized from filming 23 years ago, and over the decades. And to see them return is really fascinating to me. Also, Jason, I think Jason might win the prize for the most incredible Adonis powerhouse. I mean, they were all great, but like Jason is so solid now. Like he practices, I hear 8 hours a day, right? So then I went to Berlin and hung out and went to Vienna, which was super cool. I got to hang out with people in the front line, and it still wasn't very cold. And I keep repeating that because November, it became like a different tour. Like in October, when it was still kind of warm, it was a little bit different, I think. That said, the entire tour experience, I also think, was very different than 2016. What do I think about Simon? I mean, look, I'm biased with all of them. I think they're all great. Simon, the thing about Simon that I always wonder is what new fans think, because he looks so fucking good on stage, and he looks so young, and he's like running around, you know. And my friend who he's been listening to every single Cure bootleg ever in existence from beginning to end. He says that Simon makes the least mistakes out of any band member, including Robert Smith. Now, we love you, Robert Smith. Love has nothing to do with making mistakes on stage. But I think, yeah, I mean, that's the thing about this band that's so prolific, is like, it's 2022 and they still sound so fucking good. And I heard over and over again, well, I was going to say I heard over and over again that the new, like people who had sort of let go of the Cure, and now these new songs have drawn them back in, and the live experience has drawn them back in. And I've heard some other people with mixed reviews about the new songs. And I think that has to do with the fact, I think that has more to do with the fact that when you fall in love with music, it usually is like there's some chemistry between the ages of 16 and 23 where music really just makes more of an impression on you than when you're older. So I think that has more to do with it than where the band is right now. That said, I do think that these new songs are way, 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 way better than 413 Dream or The Cure. But I don't know. Donna says, I'm recovering from a chest infection and being without cure. Yeah, everybody got sick. So many people got sick from tour, but we'll get to that. So what I was going to say about 2016 versus now is the before times versus the after times. Like, this post-COVID world is hard. It's really hard. And I think if we don't recognize the differences it's made in all of our lives and the time lost, then we're really shortchanging ourselves and our own experiences. Whether that means that your experience is harder now than you think it should be, whether that means that you've lost more people, whether that means that you're fighting with more people, you know, than you did before. I feel like, and I repeated it to my friends, and I could say it about myself, that I had a shorter fuse than normal because of the stresses of life. I had a good gig job before I went on tour that I thought I was going to have during tour, and that went away just before tour. But I still went because life experiences are more important to me than racking up money or having some sort of label on myself as a career choice. If anyone wants to see what I've done in the film industry, you can look me up on IMDb. But I only bring that up because at one point in my life I thought it was so important to have this like big IMDb title, and I'm on there and I'm very proud of myself. But at the same time, the film business became such so hard for me working 16-hour, 12, 13, 14, 16-hour days, and I bestow so much gratitude to the people that do that industry still, because it's a hard-ass industry. It's so crazy. Somebody asked, what's your favorite of the new songs? End song by far. End song by far. Yeah. I mean, for two main reasons. One, End song is End song is really relevant to now, right? And one of the great things about The Cure is not only the music, actually the composition of the music, but Robert's words, and like, you know, I'm sure all of us when we first discovered The Cure thought to ourselves, how are you saying what's in my brain? Like, how are you saying this? So maybe some of the younger audience won't relate, but with End Song, with the lyrics, like wondering how I got so old, where's that boy that believed in the world, or whatever. I'm not going to be able to quote it all. But then musically, it's such a classic Cure song. I have a friend who is not that into it, and I think it's because he's more of a lyric person. And he's like, yeah, but it's 6 minutes before you start singing. And I'm like, exactly. You have the drums start, and then you have the slow keys, right, that sort of set the tone, set the mood, minor chords. And then live, you have the bass. You know, Simon is doing nothing, quote unquote, right? The bass doesn't come in for a while. But then some of you know he was very present during that moment, and it seemed like he was experiencing something deeply personal. I don't really know. And even if I did know, I wouldn't say it. But it was very powerful to bear witness to that. And then you have Robert on his guitar, which I always think is, again, one of the most beautiful things about The Cure is of course Robert's voice and his lyrics, but his relationship to guitar, because he's a guitar player. He's an underrated guitar player. He's not the best guitar player. Like Reeves is much more of a scholar, quote unquote, than Robert is, right? But every member of The Cure plays a little bit differently, and it's the simplicity and the beauty of Robert's guitar that I've always loved, because it's like his voice. Right? So it just sort of starts to like creep in during End Song, and then it builds on itself. It builds on itself, and then the other guitars come in, and then Simon's Simon's bass comes in, but he plays it like a guitar, right? I mean, that's sort of, somebody said that to me on the road. It's a very simple way of putting it, but really, like, the way that Simon plays bass is very unique to him, and it's a very strong voice, and so he just barrels in, and wow, and then we start to go for the ride of End Song. And yeah, Allison. So my friend who likes Nothing Is Forever is more, or who doesn't understand why I like End Song so much, loves Nothing Is Forever. And I would say maybe, I don't know, what do you guys think? That's because it's more of a, like, it's a lyrical, it's a poem, it's a thought, it's a beautiful note, lyrically. It's a great song, but it's not as complex as End Song. And if you watched, like if you go back and watch, then what starts to develop, like, so Perry started to take over the with his little wah-wah pedal, and Robert started to explore more in End Song. And then what I thought I saw is that Robert was playing more off of what Simon was playing. So the song developed over tour, End Song. I'm sure all the songs to the band developed in some way, because that's just what naturally happens. When any band plays a new song on tour, right? But especially with this music, because it's been held in captivity for so long. Um, it was really beautiful to watch it play out in real time. Great lighting and visuals. Yeah, they do have a brilliant crew, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to mention the Twilight Sad for a second because that was also a big marker for me. I'd never listened to the Twilight Sad before 2016, and 2016 was like their coming out party, sort of, into the music world. I'm not talking about their sexual preferences. I have no idea. But it was like a big celebration of gratitude, right? And then now in 2022, it was interesting for me. I'm not a huge, like, I'm sort of neutral plus with Twilight Sad. I think they're a great band, but I'm not like a big mega fan. But it was nice to sort of it was like coming home in a way, like, oh, here we are. We're coming into the gig. Here's Twilight Sad, and the difference post COVID is also post losing the singer for Frightened Rabbit, and that fucking song, which nearly broke me a couple of times. I don't know about you guys. Does anyone remember the name of the song? I forgot. So as the tour went on, I was surprised at how I couldn't keep up with myself. I kept thinking I was going to be working because I lost one big job, but I have this other part-time job, and I thought I'd be able to write and write on the trains and do this and that, but it was so fucking crazy. I don't know how the band did it. I don't know how the crew did it. And I actually ran into the Twilight Sad in Levon way later, and they were like, wow, this tour, psh. Who scheduled this tour? Robert Smith? Yeah, and then I think I read that this was the heaviest tour, like the most scheduled tour since '89. Can that be right? I know I followed the Dream Tour, which was intense in America for 6 weeks, and that was 22 shows, or 23, or something like that. I think Alone is the best opener since Plain Song. Yeah, Alone is my second favorite, for sure. Oh yeah, Keep Yourself Warm. Whew! That's the Twilight Sad cover of Frightened Rabbit. And that was just really cool to see them. So, yeah, so I was carrying on in October, and I couldn't believe how much I couldn't keep up. So I had decided to go to Venice for Halloween and not go to the Cure shows and like take a break and see a part of the world that I have never seen before. And I'm going to offend somebody, but I absolutely couldn't stand Venice. I'm sorry. But I wonder if I would have gone not on Cure time, if I would have enjoyed it more. I also stayed in like a terrible, cheap B&B with like bugs and smells, and everything was broken. It was absolutely awful. I think it's the rum. Yeah, well, I don't know how people drink so much. I can't. I'd be dead. But anyway, so I kind of, those Italy shows, that's when things started to get really hard, I thought. Like, that's when Hunger Games set in. And, like, in Halloween into November, the weather change. And Italy, like, the shows were all great. It's not about, like, the music, but, like, there was just... the only Italy show I went to was Padova because it was the smallest, and it was so hard to get into the venue. Like, people lined up for hours. There was a couple there from 2 a.m. and another from 7:30 or 8. And my friend Dana, who had come in only for one show, and I helped facilitate getting a ticket for her, and she almost didn't get in because of... she bought a ticket from me, and I had bought a ticket from Timo, and the people in the venue were not, I'm sure they're nice individuals, but they did not do a great job at that venue at all. Who was there? Anyone? Probably no one watching. I met a lot of amazing Italians. I mean, the night before in Padova was great. We went out for pizza. We sat at tables. I wish I could like streamline all my photographs, because that was a very heartwarming experience to meet this giant Italian family Cure, out of this world, the Cure Italia. So this is where I can't, brain and voice doesn't match up. But I think that's another thing to keep in mind about this tour, that even though it was definitely present in 2016, like the online thing, it's even more so now. Like almost the entire band is online, and then you have stupid shit like Paul Weller like knocking on Robert Smith online, like all these disruptors happening when like real life is where it's at least to me. But you know, this role of the online pictures of fans with the band, that also created a lot of controversy, because like if you get a picture with the band, do you share it? Do you post where their hotel is? You know what I mean? I've met the band years ago. I was lucky enough to do so, and we have so few pictures from that time period, but we were always afraid to take pictures as well. So I'm not going to judge one way or another, but I just wanted to bring that up, that was a thing. Like in Bologna, I wasn't there, but there was such a fan presence outside the hotel. How did they find out that they were at this particular hotel? I'm going to assume it was social media. And then it got so intense that the news media covered it, which I thought was interesting. And one thing that happened in Leipzig that I thought was really beautiful, that I want to return to, is I met like really, really, really young Cure fans who were seeing the Cure for the first time. And that was great. And they weren't afraid of us old people. Whereas later, I think it was in like Leeds or Birmingham, I met some 16-year-olds and they were fucking terrified. Like to be around faces like mine in the pit. They literally were like, oh my God, everybody here is old. And so I said to them, I'm like, no, there's young people here. You just got to find them. But the thing I want to know is do they know that the Cure are older than most of their audience? How does that work? Like, are you only allowed to see a band when you're a certain age, or do you have to stop, or I don't know. I mean, bless them, as the English say, and I hope they had a good time. But I thought it was kind of funny. And I guess maybe when I was 18, if I was around a bunch of 40 or 50-year-olds, I would have felt weird too. But, I mean, you're seeing a band that's been around since 1978. So you're going to see old fans. There's also like a new weird pit etiquette that I didn't feel as strongly in 2016. And I don't remember 2018 or 2019. I don't really count those one-off like weird gigs. But people don't bounce around anymore, and they're afraid to come in contact with each other, which I get because of COVID, but I don't get as far as like, if you're in the front row, if you're in the front 5 rows, I mean, yeah, you don't want to be an asshole. And like, there's an etiquette to being in the pit. Like, you don't want to thrust through right away before the main band is on. You want to kind of like groove on in, right? But there's no placeholders. There's no seats. It's a pit. And people should be allowed to dance and sing and bump into each other and have a good time. That's my stance, but I grew up a punk rocker. So anyway, so November brought the cold. Meanwhile, Ukraine still, and Putin is a fucking mess. Rail strikes are starting to happen, not only in the UK, but I heard about people's train delays in Spain and in Germany. And I, again, was going off tour, and I got sick in the early part of November. I got a chest cold in like November 10th, and it's barely leaving now. And then I got COVID, and like COVID came and left during that time. And by the way, I got COVID off tour. I think I got COVID on a train or something. I didn't get it at a concert. I mean, there's really no way to know, but Then there was the stress of us old croakers are teenagers at heart. I know. Um, so then there was the stress of the tickets for Leeds and Birmingham. I mean, and all of the UK shows, which a bunch of us started posting on. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but a lot of us started posting stuff on Twitter, and Robert Smith actually responded, which was wild. And he got some stuff done, but I still feel like the mess of Leeds and Birmingham needs to be documented because a lot of people didn't make the gigs because of the ticket fiasco, which is crazy. It's so crazy. So yeah, the crew, I have to give a shout out to the crew, to Ed and Jeremy and Al and the bazillion people, Michael, and all of the people's names that I don't know. You definitely brought us closer to the experience, and your shared experience of showing us like the tour bus and, drinking rum and being angry and being frustrated just makes everything more human and more real. Another thing that somebody told me on tour was, I said, this tour's been really hard. And this was a woman that I only met. She's a filmmaker, and we were talking about possibilities of filming Wembley fans, but I was too sick to do it. But she said, well, it's fucking real love. So, of course it hurts. Of course it's hard. So yeah, like all throughout the tour, like a bunch of us going back to Padova, it was like raining afterwards and we couldn't catch a cab. I mean, that was a theme over and over again. And I started leaving the shows early during the pop set because I did it in Hamburg actually, because I was like, I can't handle being stuck in this mess. But so there was this like crux of happy, sad going from, well, Leave-In was really interesting for me. Leave-In was a very small venue, and we were lined up outside in the rain. It was treacherous. And I actually talked to somebody who had gone to high school down the street in 1992 and then walked across the street to the Cure show in 1992. And then we get into the gig and Robert's like, we've never played here before. Did anyone call him out on that? Just wondering. I also met so many people like on the voyage to Leave-In, and so many people at that show. That was one of my favorite shows in the whole tour. I'm not sure if it was just because it was so fucking hard to get there and stay there, but I don't even remember the set list now. But then Paris was the next day, and most people enjoyed that show more. And then those beautiful posters came from that. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So around this time, getting toward the end of the tour, and for me, I felt like, how is the UK even a part of this thing? Like, I've already experienced so much. I've already been through so many ups and downs and met so many people from around the world. How can the UK still be left? So the crew, like Al especially, I hope you don't mind me calling you out, but somebody help me. What's Brains' real name? The line check guy. Anyway, the crew started encouraging us to cheer on the guy they call Brains. He has a real name, but he's been probably working with The Cure for 20 years or something. I'm not sure, but it was very cute because he would get very like blush-faced and embarrassed when he would check Robert's mic, and I will always treasure that little interaction because that was something that marked the 2022 tour. As hard as it was for the band, who, by the way, remember 2 or 3 members got COVID, And as grueling as it was for the crew and for fans, like we all, I hope, survived. Oh wow, yeah. So Just Fanning says I'm in LA, so they were super early in the morning, which is which is when I start work. So it was the best start to my day. Yeah, it was really fun to like participate with people off tour as well. I mean, as much as I feel like social media is a blessing and a curse at the same time, um, I did feel like the reward of meeting people in real life far outmeasures anything that you can experience online. Except there's just not enough time to meet everybody. There's not enough time. It's so crazy. So after the Ireland shows, we land in Glasgow, and then I met up with my original crew, the U.S. team, I'm going to say, who I started seeing shows with. I started seeing shows with my friend Ian in 1982. So it was like really moving for me to experience this last few shows with him. And we had a great time. And all of my European friends and blah, 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 blah. And I also just really, really love, like I can't experience a Cure show without looking at other people and seeing their joy. By that point I met a couple from Indonesia who had flown in just to like Strasbourg or something to see the Cure for the first time, a married couple. I met somebody from Buenos Aires in Wembley. I mean, so many of those stories of people flying in from all around the world. And I wonder if the band knows that. I mean, I don't know. Or if that would make the crew even feel a little bit, better about the grueling work that they're doing. Because it's really fucking beautiful. I mean, if you really think about it, like how beautiful is it that like people fly in from all over the world to see this band? And I still have no idea how it compares to other bands like Radiohead or Nick Cave or Depeche Mode. I mean, those are the three bands I know of that have crazy fans like this. And there's tons more, but I don't know that there really is the same quality and quantity as with The Cure. Because it may be less of a massive audience, like Depeche Mode may have a bigger audience in sum total, but the repeat offenders of like the usual suspects that come back over and over again. I mean, the conversations I had with people from Hungary and Croatia of discovering The Cure when they were living under the rule of the Soviet Union was pretty fucking fierce, and I want to have more of those conversations. Okay, but I want to get back to the last leg. So it wasn't in Glasgow. It was what was after Glasgow, Leeds, which was really hard for a million reasons. Getting into that show was a nightmare on Elm Street. Robert started talking about getting sick and saying he caught the mimic flu. First he mentioned something about a boat or something over from A to B, or he got sick in Glasgow. I blame Brian Molko from Placebo. Not really. That's a joke. I don't know. It just, poor Brian, I guess, had to cancel his gig. But then that takes us to the Birmingham show, which was so intense because Robert was getting so sick in real time. And I'm pretty sure my friends and I were at the front of that gig, and wow, that was like, oh my God, like what is happening? And I still say, I think I'm going to remember that as one of the most intimate gigs I've ever seen, because there was the band and, the lead singer and the audience singing the songs with him and then for him. Like Friday I'm in Love, he was like, just falling apart. It was really, really intense. And I thought it was really beautiful to see everybody singing together and being so entrenched in it. And then somehow Cardiff, he just like came back. We thought, some of us thought the show would be canceled. You know, it was touch and go, but it wasn't. And Cardiff was really special because it was so small. Yeah, and then Wembley came. Wembley was hard. Wembley was really, really hard. Way harder without the Lost Rivers gatherings of 2016, which made things so easy for fans to just come and go to one location before, probably during, and after the gig, right? You have this central spot where people could meet and flow, thanks to Marion and her friends who put that together. And that's another casualty of post-COVID world, is like Wembley's like ass broke. That store is shuttered. Other places have shuttered post-COVID. So the Wembley shows were great, but it was really, really hard, I think, especially for the frontline people. And I've been rambling on for way too long, so I should get going. But I just wanted to check in and say, give a big warm gratitude shout out to The Cure, to the crew, to the fans, to the people I tortured along the way by filming you or asking you questions, to that one guy who was originally from, where were you from? Argentina, but you live in Paris. This guy I met who was in Leuven and was like, what? You guys follow The Cure? Like, what is this? He had come to Leuven and was not even going to the Paris show because he wanted to see The Cure, one of the last great bands, was his words. So what do we think about that? Are there great bands anymore? Of course there are, but I think he's talking about a specific era, not an 80s era, but like, it's just so impossible in the music industry now. I just think it's a different beast. So I hope to clean up my million hours of footage and add that to the YouTube channel. I'm still not putting my movie out on YouTube. Sorry. Because then YouTube owns it. So I hope I get the funding to make a 1.5 hour feature film about our lives following The Cure, in honor of the band and in honor of the fans who have the courage to do it. It is weird. It is weird to follow a band around, but it's also one of the most fucking fun things there is to do. So, peace out.